This is Dave Perry and you're watching Retro Gaming Revival live.
Good evening. Hello. It is Wednesday. It is 8 o'clock. It is Retro Gaming Revival Live. I am Triangle Face, and I'm joined with other RGR panel member Blunners. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say, Blunners. What time of day is it anyway? Hello. We can hear you. You are indeed.
Yeah,
you are now. Oh, good to see you. And tonight, our guest for the evening is Alex of GnomeKing Games.
Right,
good evening, Alex. Hello.
Hey.
Thank you very much for joining us. Let's go through and see who else is joining us this evening in the chat. So let's have a look who we've got on there. We've got the gamer
new
Bob.
subscriber.
Let's see, new member. And Rob, always nice to see you, Rob. And Riga, nice to see you, Riga. Thanks for joining us. Ryan. Greetings, Mr. Dorbs. Some people join us. Thanks everyone for stopping by. The H7 and Radical Reggie. Nice to see you again, Reggie. He's coming in. He loves that intro. Right, thanks very much everyone for joining. So let's get on and start chatting to our guest. So the first question of the evening that we like to ask all of our guests are: what are your early gaming memories? So what actually first got you into gaming? What sort of generation of console first sucked you in?
I sort of grew up. My early years were sort of playing on my my dad's hand-me-down computer when I was like 6 or 7, playing the humongous entertainment games like Putt Travels Through Time and Pajama Sam and stuff like that. They're like point-and-click adventure games for kids. But then I very quickly found his PlayStation. I wasn't supposed to go on that, but I did. Playing like Psygnosis stuff, Roll Cage and Overboard, stuff like that. So like PS1, 90s PC sort of stuff for me. That was really early on.
Very underrated game actually, Overboard. I don't think many people talk about it, but that was really good.
Yeah.
Good fun.
Yeah.
Good sense of humour that game as well. Like the crew members like jump over the edge and like pick them back up again and things.
Yeah,
quite
a really
hard,
neat mechanic. I thought having the crew members go overboard act as your life bar, and you can actually go and pick them back up or just let them drown and stuff like that. It's actually acting as inspiration for a game I'm working on at the moment.
Oh, very cool. No, do got a lot of time for Overboard. Very challenging game though. I found it really hard. There do be certain bits you think it's going well, and all it takes is one of those like buzzsaws to hit you, and it just takes up so much of your life. Like,
you catch on fire and burn to death. That's the one that always got me.
It's one of your favourite games, isn't it? Triangle.
It's up there. I wouldn't say it's one of my top sort of 10, but it is a game I do keep coming back to because it's just quite unique. I don't think there's anything else quite like it. But there's quite a good multiplayer mode as well, wasn't there? In fact, as Riga said, multiplayer was fun. That was a good multiplayer game too. Cool. So what other games did you start off on there? Where did you move on to there for after the?
So from there, I sort of went on to more sort of early internet PC gaming, like early Flash games on like Newgrounds. I played quite a bit of RuneScape when I was in school, like primary school. Then I sort of moved on to the GameCube, found Super Monkey Ball, loved that. Very, very good game. And like some of the Sonic games, like Sonic Heroes on the GameCube and stuff like that. And then a couple years after that, the Xbox 360 came out. I was, I think, about 11 or 12 at that point. Sort of moved on to Halo and really got onto online gaming at that point. Played a lot of Halo in my early teens.
I don't think I really discovered Halo until like Halo 3, I think it was the first Halo. And I was like, I've been missing out. As soon as they jumped onto Halo 3, it's like, I've been missing out here. I need to get on this. And the one of my favourite Halo game is still now is Halo Reach. I think Halo Reach was peak Halo good. For me.
Yeah, I liked Halo
Reach. I was day one. Day one Halo. I remember getting the Xbox, that huge monster, walking back with it. And just thinking, right, I've heard about this game. How good is it? And it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I remember watching all the trailers and ready to get it on day one. And I think it was one of those times where all the stars aligned. I had a group of friends that all bought the game. We're all playing online, and we kind of just got into this flow of always being online on a Wednesday. So on a Wednesday, we just play Halo, and that was like our Halo night for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then they did like the challenges. So on the challenges they did like a complete level 1 on Lasso. So was it Legendary or Skulls?
Legendary Skulls, yeah.
And then if you did that, that was the weekly challenge for that week, and we would do that. And then the following week would be do level 2 on Lasso. And then we ended up playing through the whole game on Lasso, which was great fun.
I obviously had more patience than we did, because my brother and I tried a Lasso, and I remember it was Halo 3. We got to mission 3 Lasso, and then I died, and then my brother was like, "No, I'm done. That's it. We're not doing another level," and we never got past level 3. So we've obviously got more patience.
The multiplayer as well. I have to admit, I was carried in the multiplayer. I had a couple of friends who were just like crazy good at Halo. Like I would be happy if my kill to death ratio was at least 1 over, so I contributed more than I hindered the team. Sure. But they'd be there like doing like 35 kills and 2 deaths and stuff. Like how? Like I'd be there with like
people,
4 kills and 3 deaths. I was like, I helped by 1, so I got it just got to a point where we were winning like quite regularly. But then if I go on my own now, it's like no, I miss the days of having my friends like lift me up and carry me through those games.
I play Master Chief Collection on PC, and I'm just not as good as I used to be. I'm lucky if I can get 5 kills now. It's just like I am not very good at this game anymore.
Do you know what? I think the same for me was, I think Halo, or that would have been Halo 3 for me. So you started off like on the earlier Halo games. But I think that was the first game I properly started playing online. I think when I first started playing, I'd never really bothered before. So I don't know if I want to do it. And actually, Halo 3 wasn't too bad at welcoming like new players. I didn't feel like some games you attempt the online mode and you just get killed, and then you never get the chance to actually get good enough at the game to survive a level, because you have like people spawn camping and things like that. Where I say, "Oh, she's getting out of the room." Oh, that was one time. So yeah, we were playing a game on I can't remember which one it was, one of the WWE games. There's a multiplayer. I was going out of the ring to build up my SmackDown meter so I could run and do a finisher. And Ryan was having none of it. And you can see what I was doing. He's like, "No, you can't do that." And he was like coming out and grabbing me and throwing me back in the ring. So I do remember that. Cool. Okay. And so if we move on nicely into our next question, if I move around all the clicks you need to click, is then what would you consider your favourite game and your favourite console? So the game doesn't have to be on your console. The favourite game doesn't have to be on your favourite console.
Yeah. So my favourite game, without any competition, is Earthbound. I remember where I was when my friend said, I've found this and you need to play it. I was in 6th form. It was 2013, I think. It was released on the Wii U. Love the Wii U. And he downloaded it from the eShop and told me about it. And so I gave it a go. And I was never really an RPG person, but there was something special about Earthbound. I was just hooked. Like, I didn't put it down until I finished it, basically. And I genuinely think that Earthbound has also sort of changed the way I look at art in general. When I came away from it, I noticed I was looking at art in a completely different way to before I played it. It's quite interesting. But then my favorite console has to be the GameCube. Just amazing lineup of games. Yeah. Really fun party games. Really like nice adventure games if you're into that. It's got something for everyone. It's even got like really quite graphic shooting games if you're into that as well. There it is. There's a GameCube.
It's
nice.
Oh, your mute planners. I presume you just.
I said nice carry handle. Nice carry handle, and one of the greatest controllers ever.
Yeah, I love the controller. It's good. I've actually got 4 GameCubes. I found a really interesting one actually. It was I was on eBay one night and I saw it like I was a recommended for you thing. It was the orange GameCube, but what was interesting about it is it's not a Japanese version. It's a PAL version, and I thought it was a fake listing, but I decided to take the gamble and buy it. And it is a PAL orange GameCube. I don't know if the laser had been swapped or something had been changed somewhere, but it reads PAL discs, not Japanese discs. And the orange one is my favorite of the GameCube colors. So I'm actually quite lucky I found that, because not only is it my favorite, I actually get to use it in games that I can read because I can't read Japanese. So.
I want the Panasonic Q, mate. That nice shiny silver one.
I'd love one.
That's cost a bit, but yeah, if I ever go to Japan, that is my mission, to find one. Don't care where I find it, but yeah.
We couldn't find one when we went to Japan a few years ago. Friend and I went to Japan, and we were on a mission. We were trying to find it. We went to there's a famous gaming store there called Super Potato, and we went in there and couldn't find it.
There?
No, there was like demo consoles for all. There was like a Virtual Boy, but there wasn't a Panasonic.
I've got one of them. I've got a Virtual Boy. Yeah, it's
nice.
Rubbish. I can see why it flopped so bad.
I did actually quite enjoy playing some Virtual Boy games. So I've not got a Virtual Boy, but I did have like a Virtual Boy emulator on the Oculus Quest, and actually runs really well. Yeah, a lot of people say that actually
got to, like,
it plays
reach in
better.
like that with your head and like I've seen the red laser.
I've heard a few people say like actually the Virtual Boy emulator on the Oculus is better than experience of playing on the actual Virtual Boy. Which is good. Although I have to say, I played one of the worst games I've ever played. Hands on the worst game experience I've ever had was a Waterworld game on the Virtual Boy. It's really bad. It's like you kind of go top down, zooms in, and then like there's these ships, but the depth perception is really bad, and it just looks like a bunch of sprites in front of you. You have no idea what's going on, and then all of a sudden, like you just blow up and die. I was like, oh man, this is just dreadful. But I see what they're trying to do though. You can see like the beginnings of what they ended up with like the augmented reality stuff from the 3DS. So obviously that's like
don't forget,
perception goes down, doesn't it, rather than out, and it works quite nicely.
The thing is, people forget this was 95, like 96-ish era, wasn't it? Around that time. This is, do you know what I mean? And the stuff that it was giving you like 3D effect back then. That's just crazy. Like when you think about it, like, but it's just an antique for me, really.
I never had the GameCube, but obviously the Wii was backwards compatible. So I would have GameCube games on the Wii, and then I did get a few GameCube controllers because certain games, where like especially like things like Super Smash Brothers. If I was playing like Super Smash Brothers, the Wii version, is that I want to say Melee? Was it Brawl?
Is the one
was it Brawl? Yeah. So Brawl, I think, was the Wii one. And that's much nicer to play with the GameCube controller. So definitely with you there, and that being a nice controller, it's definitely pretty good. I had a wireless one as well, which was quite nice. They had a game, did like a limited edition one, which has like this receiver and things like that. So that made it a bit nicer as well, especially playing it like in a modern setup in the lounge rather than like I don't know how it would work now, because like a lot of my old consoles, if we go to play it, like when I was a kid playing games consoles, it would be in my bedroom, so I'd have like a TV. Like just from the distance, from like a chair in my room or a bed sort of thing, playing a short distance. But now I'll be playing like in my lounge across from the sofa, and an old controller cable is just not long enough. So nowadays you've got wireless controllers.
They did release the GameCube controller for the one on the Switch, on the Wii U, I think actually, and that has a longer cable. I've got one of them. The cable is a third of a meter longer. But it's noticeably longer than the original GameCube ones.
You need like decent cables. It's like with the Evercade VS, which is fairly recent. I was a bit concerned about that when that came out. I was like, it's wired controllers. And I was like, is it going to be all right for my setup? Is it going to be too short? But actually, the controllers it came with have got pretty decently long cables, and actually a lot of third-party controllers work on it as well. So let's do that. Right, let's move on.
It's a shame it only sold about 35. It didn't sell. Do you know what I mean? It didn't sell as much. But it's just.
I mean, I I'm a strong believer that Nintendo's least selling consoles are their best. The GameCube and the Wii U.
Yeah, Wii U is a great console,
do like the Wii U.
Isn't it? It is good. I don't know why. Yeah. I don't know why it did so poorly. I think most of it was like it was marketed badly. Like a lot of people I spoke to was like, "Oh, is it a new control pad?" It's like, no, it's actually a whole new console. And like, I just don't think people realize what it was. But actually, some of the games on it, it's got some really good, unique games. Yeah. I think one of my favorite games on the Wii U, and I think you can get it on other consoles as well, but the Wii U version is quite unique, is Zombie U.
Oh, yeah, Zombie U, yeah.
That was great for the multiplayer. It was such good fun, that multiplayer. The problem was that, like, I'd always want to play the top-down view. Yeah. Because that was being the zombie master and like using the tablet was more fun than the first-person TV. But yeah.
You think it was that good that they've had to port most of the games over, haven't they? It was that good. They've had to, like, do you know what I mean? Just to get the most out of them, because they just didn't get enough exposure.
They've not ported Nintendo Land, which is the best party game I've ever played. Bar none.
I'm looking at it.
Not Mario Party. It's completely out of the water. It's like when I played Nintendo Land, I was like, right, I don't need another party game. This is the one. And they've not ported that.
I think it's how many Zelda? I've got all the Zelda games on it as well. So you're looking at Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess
on the Wii U, including remakes.
Including remakes. Yeah. So it is up there. You think it's got the makings of a Switch. You've got a screen in front of you. You can walk around with it. You're playing it. But it's also on the big TV. So it's that portable /TV. So you can see like where they went with it. So and obviously how successful the Switch has been for them. But like you're saying, it's definitely
I think it was a
hidden
stepping stone, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was a stepping stone to get to the Switch.
Yeah.
That what was it? On Nintendo Land, the game where I think one person's running around trying to catch you and the other people are running away. I can remember that one because actually, I think it's the Mario like, trying to catch toads or whatever it was. The funniest thing about that one was the camera on the tablet would film the person that was running after you, and you could see their face on the screen. I always thought that was quite funny. There was some good.
We always used to pull faces at it, where the winner would always just like try and pull a weird face, like put it as close to their face as possible or something.
Trying to think what other like good Wii U games there was like that. I mean, the ones that stand out for me are Nintendo Land and Zombie U. There's some other really good games on there. I think Nintendo definitely do.
Youthful Joe, Bayonetta 2. Do you know what I mean? It's got loads.
Wonderful 101. That's a good one that nobody's
Wonderful
about.
101.
Yeah.
That is a good one. Is it was it X? Was it the one with the X? I forgot what it's called, but it'll come back to me.
Also the X, did you say?
Xenoblade. Is it Xenoblade? Yeah, Xenoblade X, is it?
Yeah. I didn't actually like that one that much, to be honest. I quite liked Xenoblade Chronicles, but then I finished that, and then I got Xenoblade Chronicles X, and it was a bit middling for me.
It's all right.
Cool. Well, let's move on to the next part of the show. So we brought you on here mainly to talk about GnomeKing Games and the game The Train that you brought out. So do you want to start telling us, where did this all start? Where did it come from? What sort of made you decide you're going to make a Game Boy game?
So it all stemmed from back in 2021, maybe even 2020, like late 2020. I backed a game on Kickstarter called The Shapeshifter, and that was a new indie game for the Game Boy. And I didn't realize that sort of homebrewing Game Boy games was a thing, really. So that was like my first exposure to it. And I played through it, and it was a really nice, 3 or 4 hour puzzle adventure game. And I was like, that was really nice. And it sort of inspired me to make my own, because I'd had this story written down on various sheets of paper for a couple of years that I was trying to figure out where to put it. I was thinking maybe I should write like a novella or something like that, but it lacked all the details to put into something like that. When I played The Shapeshifter, I did my research and found out that what it was made in and stuff, and downloaded it, had a bit of a play, and realized that was the format that I should make it in. So there was really the inspiration, and it then sort of turned into something just to keep me entertained in the evenings, basically. was just, learning something new and making some art for a few hours every evening if I was bored. I'd actually originally never had any plans to release it. It was purely just fun for me. But when I got to the end of it, I did have a couple of play testers just playing it for bugs and stuff, and they were like, "You need to put this out. This is really fun. It's really charming." So I did. I sort of put out a ROM version just over a year ago now, 6th of August. And that sold some copies. And people were saying, I'd love to play it on my Game Boy. Are you planning on releasing it? And that's sort of where the Kickstarter campaign came from. So there it is. There's the physical copy.
Just realised I was mute while I was saying that. Okay, there's a physical copy that I picked up at the Knott's Video Games Expo recently. So yeah, good to get some. The thing is, that's the first Game Boy game I bought in a long while. So just to add to my collection once again. Yeah. And how long did it take then? You said you work a few hours each evening. How long roughly did it take you to
I'd
start
say,
to finish?
Vaguely looking at my Subversion control logs, it was, I'd say, about 10 months of development, and then there was about 3 months of testing. So I'd say overall it had about a 13-month development cycle, if we're not including the time I'd put into writing scraps of paper for a couple of years before that.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Let's bring up, I've got a thing on here, so I'm going to show, if I share my screen.
One thing you haven't mentioned there, though, is the music in the game. The music in the game is brilliant. As I was saying to you earlier about it, obviously you've got your different types, and it changes quite a lot as well.
Yeah, the music was quite difficult. It needed to be in a particular format, and I had to use a tracker rather than a traditional piece of music software like a DAW, and it was really difficult for me to figure out what was going on with the music and what all these numbers and letters meant, and how to put the various notes together and stuff. And then I was also battling the Game Boy's limitation of only having 4 audio channels, and 2 of them are the ones that play notes. One of them's blank, and then the other one is for like noise, so like drums and stuff. So it took a long time for me to get my head around that. I would spend weeks making a single 2-minute loop. That's actually where a lot of the development time was burnt into. So yeah, it's good that you like the music. I'm glad.
I quite like there's I don't know if Blunders has got this far yet, but I did like the bit where there's a piano.
Spoiler.
And you could just like play some music. What sort of spoiler alert if you've not played it. What was it that made you decide to do that? Was that like when I was playing, I was wondered whether you figured out some more complex music stuff and didn't have a place to put it, so you put that in there specifically so you could kind of do an extra song, or did you have like a spare song you wanted to showcase?
It was just a comment that one of my playtesters said. I'd drawn the sprite, the background image of the piano, and one of my playtesters was like, I wanted to play it with a sad face, and I was like, okay. And then I sort of made a more complicated track for the piano and stuck it in for him.
Nice. Right, should we play I'm going to put the trailer on. Let's open up the trailer. We've got sound, so
I think the YouTube video might be muted.
I think I've got sound on my screen share, so we tend to not put sound on. We don't get any strikes. No, I'm sure that you wouldn't strike us on your own interview about your own game, but
no, of course.
It's a force of habit. I don't put the sound on.
Sure.
No, I said I've been about an hour and a half in, so yeah, really enjoying it at the minute. It's just a nice chill game, so you just chill out. It's nice.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to tell a story more than make super advanced puzzles or blasting aliens on a foreign planet. So it's like, there's bits of puzzles in there to make it entertaining, but the main focus is just to tell sort of a romanticized village life sort of story.
It's definitely very story driven, and I like how you've got you fleshed out the characters nicely with they might have an accent or something, or it was just hard to do when we got like a handful of pixels. You're trying to get a bit of a personality across.
Yes, exactly.
Obviously, as you're opening up the world as you go. Cool. And you got some nice little sort of bits that break up the gameplay as well. Like I quite like the fishing section. I think we're actually probably back just to see the fishing section. We'd have that little mini
boat
game
is rapid. I got on the boat and I was flying. That boat.
The boat is a little bit fast. But, and then this game, that little fishing mini game, I deliberately made it difficult to control. It sort of feels like you're underwater. Because it's got like a little bit of drift on, like you point to the left and you keep going as you're falling, just to make it a little bit more challenging.
This bit I quite enjoy. I think it's probably my favorite bit of the game with the ghost.
I got really into that, and I was just like, "Oh, I can do really creative things with this because it's a curse. So it doesn't have to make sense."
Yeah, that was good. I did like that bit. That's cool. And it's like also, a charming, you said about little village. Go on.
I was saying, you said earlier about the size of the game. It's just madness. I need to say about
1 megabyte total for the ROM.
It's 1 megabyte.
Wow, that's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's close it down now.
So where can we get it from? Triangle Face. And how much?
So there. I just had up the page. So let me put
we will have it linked in the description of this video as well.
Yeah. I'll post it here in the chat as well.
Post in the chat.
I think I have already put it in the description, so it should already be there. You can purchase that for £5 with the download copy. Where can anyone go anywhere to get a physical copy of the game?
I can now. I actually just, I think last Friday, just launched my website, GnomeKingGames.co.uk. You can purchase physical copies through that, and there is a link, an embed to the itch page, where you can buy the ROM copy as well through itch. But yes, GnomeKingGames.co.uk, and you can get yourself a physical copy.
Let's see if I can bring that as well now. Help if I spelled it properly.
Tim's just trying to search it.
I
was saying I'm only an hour and a half into it, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, I think most people. That's the one. So
and they're exclusive. We've got the Train Part 2 coming.
Yes, I'm working on the sequel right now.
Excellent. Okay, and we've got there's add cart. Yeah, you can actually order a physical copy of the game as well. Excellent. Cool. How do I stop doing that now? I don't normally drive these things, so there we go. And we're back. Right, excellent. Okay, so that was my next question. Really, was to talk about will we see a sequel? And then there it is.
Yeah, definitely. I had always had plans to make a sequel, but it didn't actually formulate how or what until I'd actually finished the first one. I actually changed the ending of my of the train ever so slightly mid-development, and it worked out a lot better for the sequel. And the sequel's already shaping up to be both graphically and performance-wise just better on all accounts. It's made in a newer version of GameBoy Studio. I know what I'm doing now because the train is not only my first release, it's my first project. So I was sort of learning the ropes as well as making a product at the same time. So I know what I'm doing there now, and I've learned a lot through getting a lot of constructive criticism of it. There was a Twitch streamer that ran through the whole game at one point, and I was watching that, and he said, "Oh, this is a bit weird, and maybe this should have been like this." And it's not until people start feeding things back to you that you realize maybe you could have done something a little bit better or made something more obvious in places. So I'm grateful for that feedback.
Yeah. I think we've got a question there from Rigo who showed up, who was asking, does it need any emulation, or do you download and run it? Is it actually run as its own exe, or do you actually need to play it off of an emulator?
Yeah, so the ROM copies are a .gb file. You will need a Game Boy emulator But the benefit of that is that it will run on, PC, or if you've got like a little Raspberry Pi with a retro arch on it or something like that, you can stick it on there as well, and it'll run on anything. Even if you've got like a flashable cartridge for the Game Boy, it'll run on that.
Okay, nice. And do you think we could see the train, or have you got any plans to get anywhere else? So there's a lot of there's quite a good indie scene on things like Antstream Arcade have got an indie section. We've got systems like the Evercade. Is that something you've looked at all, or
I haven't looked at anything else yet, apart from the traditional Game Boy cartridges. I want to try and find a way to get the Train 1 and 2 as sort of a back-to-back experience on the same system, because the Train Part 2 takes off immediately after the Train 1 finishes. And it would be nice to sort of combine the two ROMs so that when the first one finishes, the second one just starts, and instead of being sort of 2-3 hour games, it's 1 6-hour game sort of thing.
Yeah,
but I haven't looked at any sort of specific consoles or means of doing that just yet.
Yeah, well, there's a few games on the Evercade that were made in Game Boy Studio. One of my favorite games on the Evercade actually is Dedius. Don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, yeah.
That was really good, and that just it also goes to show, and much like the Train does, it shows you how much sort of storytelling and atmosphere you can set with just Game Boy graphics, which I think is great. Like, I think you wouldn't think a Game Boy game could be like scary, and I wouldn't call Dedius scary as such, like a jump scare game, but it is eerie. It has that eerie vibe to it, and you're playing it, it's like, this is kind of spooky. Like, you can tell something sinister is going on. It takes a while before anything kind of comes to light. But
it's sort of like I guess Metroid 2 has sort of got sort of spooky vibes, if you want. But I think Dedius, it really does push it further, because I think that Metroid 2 sort of falls flat a little bit because Nintendo was still trying to make it marketable, but I think Dedius is like going one step further on the sort of horror element.
I was going to see if there was a few comments in the chat there I was going to do up. Sorry, I've got any emulators you recommend for what's GD game?
Maybe.
I don't know what you're saying, GD. Maybe you could enlighten us, Rigo. Not quite sure.
No,
GB. Sorry, that's why.
He thinks GB.
Where's GD? He means Game Boy, doesn't he? That makes a lot more sense.
So the one that I use and I did throughout my testing was an emulator called BGB. That's, as far as I know, the most accurate Game Boy original emulator that I could find. It's the one I use for testing on my PC. It even crashes when you where it would on a traditional cartridge, so it's pretty accurate.
So, if you were giving what advice would you give to anyone who's starting off? So, as I mentioned, I'm trying to start a game now in Game Boy Studio myself, and if anyone watching is interested in getting into that sort of thing and looking at something like Game Boy Studio, what sort of tips would you give if someone was looking to start doing a Game Boy project?
I guess so. The first bit of advice I'd give anybody like that, as corny as it sounds, is don't be afraid to make the mistakes. Every project you will make mistakes, and you'll come back to something and you'll go, well, no, I could have done that better, but at the time you didn't know. So it's a learning process. You'll make mistakes and you'll learn stuff for the next time you do it. But on technical advice, I'd say be very conscious of limitations of the system that you're releasing for, and tone your expectations to that system. It's nearly impossible to make a 1,000-hour Skyrim clone on the Game Boy.
That will be more than 1 meg. That will be.
So
Game
Boy's got 4 colors. The maximum ROM size I can think of, I think, is 4 megabytes. There's 4 channels for audio. So you may, if you've got this massive story you want to write, you may have to cut some bits out every now and then, or rework certain areas, which is actually something I found when I was doing mine. I wanted to do a scene with lots of characters on screen at once, and it wouldn't work, and I didn't really know how to do it, so I ended up just putting the characters on the background to get around that. But I had to tone it down in terms of scale because I wanted to have sort of 50, 60 people on the one screen, and that's just not possible.
You can only have so many actors, can't you, in a scene?
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, I'm sort of discovering that.
Right. So you've really got none.
Yeah. And I've also seen there's like a Discord, isn't there, for GameBoy Studio? Yeah. People seem quite good in there, and then there's also like a lot of YouTube tutorials. Like, as soon as you type in like GameBoy Studio, I've been finding stuff on there. So there's quite a lot of resources I think are out there to help people get onto it. Yeah,
the Discord's great. I'm still asking them questions now, and they'll get back to me, and it really is helpful. Some of them even offer to like take your thing and debug what's wrong for you, and they'll fix it and then tell you what they've done. I've had a couple people do that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think my game's at the very early days. Yeah, you mentioned they're having if you count development time of bits of paper, my game is mostly in here at the moment. And I'm just going to cut off my background. Yeah, that's where my game currently sits, in a notepad. But I've been sort of writing out and mapping out the game. Most like the puzzles, because I'm doing similar sort of game really, so it's good to play this because I'm kind of going for a very similar puzzle-driven, story-driven game. Whereas I've kind of gone mostly kind of inspired by things like Resident Evil, because like Resident Evil is kind of I'm quite into escape rooms, so I've kind of gone into it the mentality of like it's basically an escape room. But where if you think about like Resident Evil 2. You spend a lot of the game trying to get out of the police station. It feels like it's an escape building, if you will, to kind of solve puzzles and get out. So that's kind of what I'm trying to take most of my inspiration from on that. But it's a sci-fi sort of theme. So it's on a spaceship and kind of have aliens and things like that. So I'm hoping to make some progress on it so I can start actually sharing some of it and posting some videos and stuff of my progress. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know. Do too much yet because I've only just started. I don't want to hit a wall and then find out it takes me, years to release. So I was interested to know how long it took you. So 10 months plus additional 3. It's actually really impressive that you've done. You produced the game in that sort of time frame. That's really good. Awesome. If you've got any questions in the chat, please do send them our way, and we can ask questions as we go. But let's move on to one of our other segments we like to do. So we've got a segment we talked about before the show called Waller's Remasters, where you pick 3 games that you think deserve to get a remake or a remaster for modern systems. So what would be your 3 Waller's Remasters?
I would probably start with Halo 3. A remake in the same sort of style as the Halo 2 remake. I was very, very impressed with the Halo 2 remake, particularly the redo of the cutscenes. They were very impressive. I'd love to see a Halo 3 in the same sort of style. I'd probably pick Killer 7 from the GameCube version specifically. That would just be a remaster, I think, rather than a remake. I think they did port it to PC, but it's not a remaster. I think it's just literally a straight copy. There's a couple things in there that I would tweak with hindsight from the original. And I guess the third one would probably be, I'd like a from the ground up remake of Final Fantasy IX. That would be very good.
Okay. I was never like, I don't know how I feel about 9 because I've gone back and played it again. I think it's better than I gave it credit for when I first played it. But I played a heck of a lot of 7. I think 7 was like one of my favorites. Obviously, they did what did you think of the 7 remake? Were you a fan of it? Have you not played it?
I've not played it yet. I actually, embarrassingly, haven't even played 7.
Have you not? You'll make Dorbs very happy. Dorbs hates it. I don't know how we always end up coming back to Final Fantasy VII on the show. We always talk about it. It just always comes up. Like Final Fantasy comes up a lot. And like Dorbs hates it. Always. I haven't looked at the comments, but he's probably going to be putting Zeds on the screen and saying he's going to fall asleep. but it's one of my favorite games, probably possibly my favorite game of all time. And same with Nintendo. He really likes it too. But we're split on the remake. I didn't actually enjoy the remake that much. I thought it was all right, but I found it a little bit disappointing. I was a bit less let down by it. And there's just lots of sections where like anything that was from the original that they just redone and a new setting was great. But I found they did like loads of filler, which I thought was a bit. Tried to drag out sections, things like that, and it was good, but it just wasn't the same. So, a 9 remake. Would you want to see it in the same sort of way they remade 7, or would you want to see it like just a complete, actual, just a re-release?
Yeah, like I've heard and seen the comments on Final Fantasy 7 remake, and one of my colleagues at work, he was massively into Final Fantasy 7, and he really hates the remake. He's constantly moaning about it, and I wouldn't want to see Final Fantasy 9 like that. I really enjoyed Final Fantasy 9, and I think it's the perfect one to redo because it's quite accessible, because it's a little easier than the ones that were coming out around that time, with the exception of like 10 onwards. So I think that one's good for both returning audiences and new audiences.
Yeah, the one thing I would change about 9 was the trance system. They used to really do my head in, because you'd get your trance bar full, but then you'd automatically use it. And now in 7, you would have it where when you got your limit break bar full, you could choose to use your limit break, or you could do something else and you could save it. So often I'd save it until a boss fight, and then I'd release my limit break and do it. Whereas a 9, you'd be like, you'd be approaching a boss, one of your characters would go into trance, and then one of the other characters you'd already entered an attack for would then hit the enemy and kill it, and then the battle would be over, and you wouldn't even get to see it. And then you'd have to start building a bar. It took so much longer to build up. Like, you play for ages, finally get your trance bar full, go, great, I want to see what my trance looks like, and then the enemy would die, and it would happen again. And sometimes I think I went through the whole game, and I'd only see a character's trance like once. So if I was going to change something, I'd definitely, if they brought it out, they'd have to make an option where you didn't have to use your trance
auto
like,
trance
by default.
Take it off,
Definitely take auto trance off.
Yeah, but it was good otherwise though. I like the characters, I like the music, I like the pacing of the story and the world that you sort of traversed. I think it's probably my favorite Final Fantasy world. It's possibly tied with 6. Or maybe even 4. I quite liked 4. 4's world building was quite good because they had a real cross between sci-fi and fantasy in that one.
So quite surprising if you've played 9 and 6 and 4, but you've not played 7.
I've played 4, 5, 6, 9, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've never played 7.
How come you never played 7? Just jump over it.
I don't know. I have no excuse. I just skipped it. It just never happened.
It's for me, it was the first one I played. That was you mentioned earlier, Earthbound was your introduction to like getting into RPGs.
Yes, it was.
Final Fantasy 7 for me was my introduction to RPGs, and got massively into it. I think I played through that game a few times, especially for a game that length, to go back and replay it again. And I also really liked
4.
No, it's 3 discs, I think. Disc 3 was literally just the ending. I think disc 3 was like the world map had everything on it, but it's pretty much just the end of the game. I think disc 3. But I think it's mostly the cutscenes that pushed it onto 3 discs. There's quite a few, like at the time, high end CGI sort of videos on it.
Yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy CG has always been really good. I've always thought, for the console it's on, the Final Fantasy games at that time, the CG is above everything else. You look at PlayStation 1 games of the same era versus Final Fantasy, and then PlayStation 2 games versus Final Fantasy 10. They always just seem better. I don't know what they do, but they do something right.
There's something weird as well with the games that I always kind of come back to them. And I've not played. The last one I played was 13, I think. So I think I've not played. I know that 14 was online, and then 15 was another. 15 was the one with the guys with the guy that's a prince. I know he like throws a sword. I've not played that one yet, but I think I want to give that a try soon. But each time I play a Final Fantasy game, often I'll have an opinion on it, and I'll go away and play something else. And I'll come back, and I always see sort of like change my mind about it. Like I think I judged 8 and 9 too harshly. I was never a big fan of 8.
I wasn't either.
It's mainly because I liked the materia system so much in 7, and in 8 they had this junction system where if you use the magic that you had junctioned, you're effectively like making yourself weaker. It's like, I want to have 100 of whatever it is junctioned to my status or wherever, but then that deterred me from actually using the magic.
Yeah,
I thought it was a bit of an odd system. Yeah,
it didn't do it for me. It was confusing. Yeah. I found it really confusing. Like, I finished it, but I don't think I quite know what I was doing. It was sort of like, I'll junction this to this character, and then they'll have these abilities, and it's like, well, is this the right setup? Am I doing it right? It's just a bit confusing.
And again, like, really good makes a good point about the characters. I didn't find Squirrel that likable, which I think really doesn't help when he's the main character. And like, he was just a bit annoying, to be honest.
Yeah, I found the Final Fantasy VIII characters felt like they were placeholder characters for when they were supposed to be putting the real dialogue in. It was like, oh, we'll just throw some lines in here that make sense, and then we'll come back and rewrite it. And then when it came time to release, they were like, well, we've got the temporary dialogue in now. Oh well.
Yeah. Oh god. Just speaking of dialogue, I kicked myself when I did it in Final Fantasy X. You know, you get the Albed journals. And the more the books you pick up, the more letters it replaces. So then you can start understanding what they're saying.
Yeah.
I finished the game, and you can go back to the beginning of the game, and there's a crystal. I think you can load your Albed Premier like dialogue and then carry on.
Yeah.
So then you can do the beginning of the game when all the Albed are around and Tidus has no idea what's going on. You can then read all the subtitles. You can see what's going on. And I was like, oh, great. I can finally see what was going on in that scene from doing this. And I did that first little section of the game, and then I went to save it, and I just instinctively just went save, overwrite, saved it. And I overwrote the save file rather than creating a new one. I was like, oh, no. So I couldn't. So in the end, I ended up looking up on YouTube, like, to watch someone's recording of it, because I completely messed that up, unfortunately.
Yeah, my RPG bad habit is making too many save files. You know, it's like I'll get so far in a game, and then I'll think, hang on, there's lots of high value drops here and lots of health potions. There's a boss coming up. I'll save in a new slot. And then I keep doing that. And in certain Final Fantasy games, they just let you have like nearly infinite slots. And then I'm like, save 57 down. And it's like, well, this save 57, I died. And I go back to save 56, and it's like 4 hours behind or something. I'm like, oh, I have to redo that bit now.
I've never done that on like Final Fantasy games so much, but I definitely do that with things like Skyrim, Fallout, any Elder Scrolls game.
Sure.
Like Oblivion, I'd always have more, because you might just get to a point where like, oh, I need to go back to before I miss certain items, or get trapped somewhere that I can't get out of. And I felt like that was a bit more, because it just doesn't have like checkpoints as much. It could all go horribly wrong at any time, so I want to kind of back things up with a save,
especially with Oblivion's weird physics.
Yeah, well, that was great though. I think, I love Oblivion. I think Oblivion's everyone likes Skyrim. Don't get me wrong, I think Skyrim's great, and I know it keeps on getting re-released and stuff. But I actually think Oblivion was again, I preferred playing through. I preferred the world that it was in.
Yes, me too.
Although I did get really fed up with the Oblivion gates. Because like in Skyrim, you're walking along, you're on your way to your next mission, and there's a dragon. And you think you just be like, oh well, I've got time, I'll kill this dragon. It doesn't take that long, and you get the dragon soul and all that sort of stuff. But the equivalent to that in Oblivion was an Oblivion gate with like a whole segment. And I was like, oh
yes.
It's like I'm just gonna leave. And after a while, it's like, so after a while, I was like, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'll just leave that gate there. I'll come back later.
A lot of people bash the visuals and the voice acting and stuff like that on Oblivion, but every time I say Oblivion it's the game that ages like fine wine. It's got weird, strange looking characters and dialogue that's not always voiced by the same person for the same character speaking two different lines. But there's something nice about that. It's really homely. It's like coming home to a fireplace and putting your feet up and reading a newspaper, sort of cozy. It's just I love Oblivion. I can't fault it, even though it's got faults. I can easily just look past it.
I know what you mean. It's definitely and again, it's another one of those games that was my first sort of game of that genre that I got really into, and then I went on to play other like Fallout games and Skyrim and things like that afterwards. But that was the first time I think I played a game that had that sort of scale, because it just feels like such a huge game. I think I got so used to like being in a game where if there's an item, you're supposed to have it and you pick it up. Whereas like if you play like Oblivion, there's like a cup. It's like, do I need this cup? It's just there. It's like, oh, there's a bit of fruit. It's like, oh, there's just stuff everywhere, and you can interact with everything, and it makes it feel that much more immersive because you've got all these pointless items everywhere that you don't actually need. And I was just so used to, the only items in the game are items you need to get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I always make a point to pick up the paintbrushes. Whenever I play it, I always pick the paintbrushes up because in my Xbox 360 copy of it, it was before they patched it in the Game of the Year edition. Paintbrushes have no physics. You can drop them and they float, and you can jump on top of them because they've got collision, and you can make like a ladder.
No way!
Physics. So in the original version, I just would have thousands, and they don't weigh anything. They've got 0 weight, so I'd have like thousands of paintbrushes.
Wow!
And I'd
There's a top tip for you.
And jump off of it into the rivers and stuff like that.
Oh, nice. Now, I used to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought then. That was it. I used to make sure I'd always like organize my items in the house because like if there was I would always have like a room which was like my crafting room where you had like the what's called like the apothecary table and things like that. And there'd always be like a drawer of soul gems, and then I'd have another drawer of like all the different items because after a while you become over encumbered. You need to dump your stuff off. And I'd always like have a really organized house. I don't know why I was so inclined to do that, but it's just something you just get into, don't it? You can't help it. You just have to organize all your stuff.
For me, it was like I would find like a tiny little chest of drawers, and you'd open it up, and hundreds of bits of armor and swords would fall out of this tiny drawer. Sort of thing, like the menu would take 5 minutes to scroll down, and be like, "What item did I need again? It's somewhere in here amongst the 3,000 soul gems."
So it's like in I think it might be Skyrim rather than Oblivion, but I got quite into crafting the first time I played through it, and I was crafting loads of armor and stuff. And to increase the crafting ability, I had like a little bit of a loop where because everything you did increased the stat, didn't it? So if you did anything, it increases that ability. So I was increasing a number of different things at once, by going to like the crafting station in my house and making leather and making daggers, because you just needed like iron ingot and leather strip, and it was a dagger. And I think in the game, if you made an item, it didn't matter what the item was, you got an experience in crafting. So I was just like, make dagger, just make a whole bunch of daggers. You then walk over encumbered really slowly to like the enchanting table and enchant the dagger. Then you go to the merchant and you sell them all, and then that increases like your bartering and things like that, and you get loads of money. You then go and buy a whole bunch of iron blocks, go hunting and kill some animals and get the soul gem to capture souls and get more hides to make leather, and then repeat the process again. So I was just doing that. And I found like that was actually oddly relaxing to just be like, I'm not going to go off into a dungeon and try and complete a mission or do anything. I'm just going to chill and go hunting and make some daggers. I do that for once. So I was like really like powerful, high level blacksmith basically. And all these things. And then the funny thing was, then we go, right, I've leveled up all the stuff. I made myself some really cool items and some really cool armor. I'm now going to go and check out some sort of mission. And the first mission I did, the prize for completing the mission was a weapon that was better than the one that I crafted. I was like, I spent all that time getting it crafted. It's like, what a waste of time.
Oh, no.
So
I didn't. It always hits hard when the game developers are like, they can do this and they can get really good at it, but we're just going to make an item that's better than anything they can make out of our algorithm.
There's one thing I always find a bit difficult with games when like there is a crafting option, or you find stuff. Whenever there's shops, I'm like, do I need to buy this or not? Like I could buy like a sword or a gun or whatever it is you're playing, and then I don't know whether like in the next room, am I going to kill a creature that's holding a gun that's better than this one I can pick up?
Yeah, I feel that. I get that. Yeah.
And then you get to near the end of the game, you've got tons of money that you just don't need.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say
ordered it all.
Basically the same thing. I was going to say like towards the end of RPGs, the shops just become useless because it's like, well, I've got all the good armor in the game now, so what's the point in these shops now? The world just becomes empty. I
remember once a friend of mine, we were playing, what was the game? It was The Division. We were playing through The Division, and you get given like loads of items. I think like people just give you stuff, and you find all these different items. I think there's a lot of stuff that was just aesthetics, and we just decided just for a laugh that the rule is if somebody gives you something, you immediately put it on, and that's now what you're wearing. So we're walking down the road with our guns and stuff, and like an old lady would come up to us like, "Oh, thanks for everything you're doing," and she gives you like a bobble hat. I'm like, "Oh, thanks, lady. Put the bobble hat on," and like carry on playing the game with like a pink bobble hat. For some reason that just enhanced the game experience for us somewhat.
I saw a Twitch stream a long time ago now of somebody playing Oblivion, and the chat controlled what armor and weapons they were using. So they'd be like, and the difficulty, the chat controlled the difficulty as well. So they'd be walking down
nice.
like a mud crab, and suddenly the difficulty would spike up to the maximum, and they'd lose all their weapons and be fighting naked with just their fists against this invincible mud crab.
I think that's one game where like the modding community has really done a lot of cool stuff. I've not really watched a huge amount. I've mostly watched clips, but I see like little clips of somebody that's done like a Skyrim mod. And one I found quite funny was Gentleman Crabs. So all the mud crabs had like a monocle and a top hat. Yeah, and I was like, that was quite good. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Well, thanks very much for joining us this evening, and thanks for talking to us about the train. And Blunders, you'll have to update me on how you find it. But I did finish it while I was on holiday. So I took it with me on holiday and had my Game Boy. So it's good to dust off the Game Boy. And play through a modern Game Boy game. Mm-hmm. And you never know, I might eventually bring out a game myself. So
that'd be great. I mean, definitely. If you've got any links or anything to send me on Twitter or whatever, extra.
Sure. I'll let you know when it gets to a point where I've actually got something tangible. Again, at the moment, it's notes in a notebook, maybe evolving a little bit onto Google Docs now, as opposed to a paper version. But we shall see. And thanks for coming on and joining us. And thanks for everyone in the chat. And we will see you. Have we got anything lined up, Blunders? We've got anything to plug?
Not I know of, yeah.
Monday, I'm sure we'll have another ModCons or Total Evercade podcast on Monday. So check out we've got some regular. Will we see the train on Indie Heroes 3, or maybe Train 1 and 2?
Possibly.
If you want to have a back-to-back, experience, that sounds great. Yeah. No, it'd be interesting to see if that does materialise. Like I said, the indie scene there is pretty good. We've got don't mind Dorbs. He's there saying he's not a fan of the Evercade. Please avoid it again. The rest of us like it. It has got a good indie scene, and it's got other Game Boy games on there like Dedius, and I can't remember the name of the other one. There's another Game Boy game on Indie Heroes 2. There's like a space one. I've not started that one yet.
Is that is it called Fall from Space?
I'd have to look it up to double check. It's one where you play like a little guy in a spacesuit and you're like moving around. I think it's like more like this little fetch quests, and it's a little astronaut
one I'm thinking of. Then you play as a robot.
Okay.
From space.
Yeah, it's one of those. You let us know what it is. Let's give players a chance.
Did you say it's on 2?
I think it's on Indie Heroes 2. Yeah, because I played everything on 1. I've not played this game yet, but it's a Game Boy game. You can probably tell from the green because it's all in green.
The lovely shades of green and white.
Yeah.
See if Ryan knows it.
Let's see.
Yeah, Mr. Evercade.
He is our local Evercade expert. He's got every cartridge so far. Actually, no, he hasn't got Intellivision 2 because I think he's refused to buy Intellivision 2. But any joy, Blunders? Yeah, that looks like it. Can you see that?
Yes. Okay. I do know Gelatinous. Yeah.
Oh no, that's not the one I was thinking of actually. But that's another example. Yeah, another Game Boy game. There's another Game Boy game on Indie Heroes 2. I was thinking of that's different again. Actually, speaking of Gelatinous, that's Quest Arrest as well. I think I presume that was made in Game Boy Studio. I think that's
yeah.
So yeah, lots on there. There you go. Right, so it's not a spaceship game. So yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Spaceman game. Who knows? Cool. Right. Before we sign off, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Anywhere can people find you on socials and things like that? Is there any?
I have a website again, GnomeKingGames.co.uk, that you can buy physical copies of the train there and digital copies through a redirect to itch. That's also got a link to all my social media, Twitter, Facebook, the itch page, and in my YouTube channel, which is all just GnomeKing Games. So
awesome. Right. Thanks very much for coming on. Thanks very much for everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. I think we're still live.
Yeah.
Hang on. I've clicked end broadcast. Oh, an error has occurred. Wait a moment, then try again. Right, thanks for watching, everybody. Let's try it again. You might have to try, brothers. I'm not making this up. It says an error has occurred.